During the reign of Bloody Mary I, she burned over 200 Protestants at the stake for their religious beliefs. Mary had a very hard life, and she suffered with her health throughout, and also she had a false pregnancy. She greatly wanted a son or daughter so they could continue her branch of the Tudor dynasty, and she hoped that this child would continue the Catholic restoration which was occurring during her time on the throne. But this child never came, and because of this she believed that God was punishing her for not being harsh enough with heretics and Protestants in her land, and from this the burnings occurred and ramped up. But there was one group of women who were all burned together on the Channel Island of Guernsey, and their execution was one of the most shocking and barbaric of the whole Tudor period. Join us today as we look at the brutal burning alive of the Guernsey Martyrs, and remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. The burnings of people during Mary I's reign occurred all over the country. In cities and towns such as Lewes and Canterbury, there were many people burned for their religious beliefs. The persecutions were wide-reaching across the nation, and some of the most high-profile executed were Thomas Cranmer, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, and also Bishops Latimer and Ridley. The execution method of burning was linked to heresy and religious crimes, and it was a standard way of dealing with heretics who had been condemned to death. Crowds would flock to see these killings, despite how savage they were, and places such as Smithfield became an infamous site of execution because of it. Many executions were carried out on market days, where more people would be around to see the proceedings, and the point of these burnings was also to put people off being Protestant, and to get them to assimilate to Mary I's Catholic beliefs. But on Guernsey, there was a family which was destroyed by the Marian Persecutions. Guillemine, Gilbert and Perotine Massey were sisters, and on the island they lived with their mother named Katherine Cawches. Perotine was married to a Norman Calvinist minister who left the island to go to London, it's believed to avoid persecution and punishment on Guernsey for not being a Catholic priest. However, during some of the accusations levelled against the three women, they were initially accused of having been given a stolen goblet. Handling stolen property was seen as a serious crime at the time, and Perotine Massey, Guillemine Gilbert, and Katherine Cawches were sent to trial. At their trial it was decided that a man named Vincent Gosset, who was the main witness, had lied about this, and the women were found not guilty, and Gosset was actually punished with his ears being nailed to the pillory. During the trial it was also discovered, though, that the three women had not been attending church. This was a very serious thing to do during the Tudor times, and many people became known as recusants, who refused to go to church, and they were punished through fines and then execution. This even occurred during Mary I's reign and after it, and the court report on the three women stated that, "Master Dean and justices in your court and jurisdiction, after all amiable recommendations, pleaseth you to know that we are informed by the depositions of certain honest men, passed before us in manner of an inquiry, in the which inquiry Katherine Cawches and her two daughters have submitted themselves in a certain matter criminal, wherein we be informed that they have been disobedient to the commandments and ordinances of the Church, in contemning and forsaking the Mass and the ordinances of the same, against the will and commandment of our sovereign Lord, the King and the Queen." Because of this, all of the women were then tried for heresy on the 4th of July 1556. Perotine Massey, Guillemine Gilbert and Katherine Cawches claimed they'd been acting in the religious policies of the previous king, King Edward VI. Their neighbours stated that they were not willing to accept Mary I's ideas on religion and her church services, as in Catholic Mass. Because of this, the three women were then found guilty of heresy and were then sentenced to death to be burned at the stake in a horrific ordeal. But at the time, Perotine Massey was pregnant, and even back to the pagan times, it was said that pregnant women could not be executed or killed by burning at the stake. But Catholics during the Tudor period believed that this was an acceptable thing to do, to kill the child as well as the mother, even if they had not been born. Helier Gosselin was the man placed in charge of the execution that occurred on Guernsey on the 18th of July 1556. The three women, the two sisters and mother, were all brought to the stake in their execution site. They were all burned on the same fire, and a court official read out their death sentence. John Fox said of the executions of the three women, "The time then being come, when these three good servants and holy saints of God, the innocent mother with her 2 daughters should suffer. In the place where they should consummate their martyrdom were 3 stakes set up. At the middle post was the mother, the eldest daughter on the right hand, the youngest on the other. They were first strangled, but the rope broke before they were dead, and so the poor women fell in the fire. Perotine, who was great with child, did fall on her side, where happened a rueful sight, not only to the eyes of all that stood there, but also to the ears of all true-hearted Christians that shall read this history. For as the belly of the woman burst asunder by the vehemence of the flame. With this Fox outlined that the 3 were all burned together on one fire, and that they were supposed to be strangled first, so they were all dead before the fire killed them. But this did not happen, and they were all burned alive. Fox accused that Perotine's stomach then burst open with the fire. Another witness commented on this brutal part of the execution. One witness stated that the baby was taken from the fire and was then laid on the grass nearby, before an executioner ordered that it should be carried back to the fire and burned alongside its mother. Fox stated that, and so the infant, baptized in his own blood to fill up the number of God's innocent saints, was both born and died a martyr, leaving behind to the world, which it never saw, a spectacle wherein the whole world may see the heralding cruelty of Catholic tormentors. As the dead mother's uncle later complained in one of the surviving records of the incident, the baby born of one of them being taken and cast up in the fire again, 4 were executed, though only 3 had been condemned. It's believed that if Perotine Massey had declared in court that she was pregnant before her execution, then it may have been postponed until after she had been given birth. However, this may have still gone ahead. But today a memorial plaque of the martyrs marks the site near to their execution on the island. But during the reign of Mary I, executions like this occurred all over the land. By the time she had died, she had burned over 280 people at the stake in shocking scenes, which haunted many people across England. When Queen Elizabeth I took the crown, following Mary I's death on the 17th of November 1558, there were Protestants who had been condemned as heretics and were waiting to be burned alive. Elizabeth refused to sign their death warrants, and then had these Protestants released. The executioner who burned the women was subject to much debate, and Protestants tried to get him executed for the way he dealt with the 3 women and the fact that Perotine Massey was pregnant. But the executions of the Guernsey Martyrs were some of the most shocking of Mary I's reign, and it shows the truly brutal side of Mary. Mary I was certainly a queen and a monarch you did not want to oppose or get on the bad side of, as it could have had incredibly deadly consequences. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.